The massive station Kepler 402b hung in the void like a glittering jewel, its countless lights reflecting off the hulls of ships from 100 different worlds. Inside the central tribunal chamber, beings from across the galaxy had gathered to witness what many considered a routine case of human theft. Judge Kang Min-ho adjusted his ceremonial robes as he entered the chamber, the weight of 3 decades serving galactic justice evident in his measured steps. The courtroom fell silent as species after species turned their attention to the imposing figure. Kang had presided over disputes between the crystal-based Vorthak and the gaseous Nebulons, settled trade wars between entire star systems, and even mediated first contact protocols. Yet something about today's case felt different. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering, its walls shifting to accommodate the environmental needs of different species. Atmospheric zones allowed oxygen breathers to sit alongside methane-dependent life forms, while gravity fields adjusted section by section. Translucent barriers shimmered with universal translation matrices, ensuring every word reached every ear, tentacle, or sensory organ in the room. At the plaintiff's table, Vextar dominated the space with his imposing Zentorian frame. His scales glittered with an oily rainbow sheen, and his forearms gestured dramatically as he spoke in hushed tones to his legal team. The Zentorians had ruled the Outer Rim for millennia, their technology considered among the most advanced in known space. Their quantum-fold communication arrays were the backbone of interstellar commerce, making instant communication possible across vast distances. Park Soo-jin presented a stark contrast at the defendant's table. Her simple jumpsuit bore the wear, marks of someone who spent more time in engine rooms than courtrooms. Grease stains dotted the fabric, despite obvious attempts to clean it, and her calloused hands spoke of years working with machinery. She sat alone, having dismissed the court-appointed legal advocate with a polite but firm refusal. This decision had caused quite a stir among the galactic legal community. Humans were still considered newcomers to the galactic stage, having achieved faster-than-light travel only in the past century. Their technology was viewed as primitive by most standards, cobbled together from salvaged parts and innovative desperation rather than sophisticated engineering. The gallery buzzed with whispered conversations in dozens of languages. Representatives from the trading guilds had come to observe, knowing that patent disputes could reshape entire economic sectors overnight. Several Zentorian officials sat in the front rows, their confidence evident in their relaxed postures. Behind them, a handful of humans from various colony worlds watched nervously, understanding that this case could affect how their species was perceived across the galaxy. Judge Kang's eyes swept the room before settling on the defendant. Something about Park Soo-jin intrigued him. While most accused parties either cowered with fear or blustered with false bravado, she displayed a calm certainty that seemed almost out of place. Her dark eyes held knowledge that didn't match her humble appearance. The bailiff, a towering Gorathan with 4 arms and crystal blue skin, announced the formal beginning of proceedings. His voice resonated through the chamber's acoustic systems, translated instantly into the native languages of every species present. The Galactic Patent Tribunal is now in session, the Honorable Judge Kang Min-ho presiding. Case number GPT-7749, Zentorian Confederacy versus Park Soo-jin of Earth Colony. Designation Tau Ceti Prime. Kang activated his judicial neural interface, allowing him to access the case files directly through his augmented consciousness. The evidence seemed straightforward enough. Soo-jin's cargo vessel, the Lucky Strike, had been inspected at a routine customs checkpoint and found to contain quantum-fold communication arrays identical to patented Zentorian designs. The technology was worth millions of galactic credits and represented decades of Zentorian research. What puzzled Kang was how a simple human engineer from a backwater colony had acquired such sophisticated equipment. The quantum-fold arrays required materials that didn't exist in human space and manufacturing techniques that human technology couldn't achieve. Yet there they were, integrated seamlessly into her ship's communication systems. "Ms. Park," Judge Kang announced, his voice carrying the authority of his office, You stand accused of patent infringement on Zentorian quantum fold communication arrays. The Zentorian Confederacy claims you have illegally installed their proprietary technology in your vessel without proper licensing or authorization. How do you plead? The courtroom held its collective breath. Many expected her to break down, to confess her crimes, or at least attempt some desperate plea for mercy. Instead, Park Soo-jin rose slowly from her chair, her movements deliberate and confident. "Not guilty, Your Honor," she replied, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. The Zentorian prosecutor's satisfaction was audible in the hissing sound that escaped his respiratory slits. From his perspective, the evidence was overwhelming. Humans were known throughout the galaxy for their resourcefulness in acquiring technology beyond their means, often through less than legitimate channels. Their ships were flying museums of salvaged parts, jury-rigged systems, and creative adaptations of equipment they barely understood. The prosecutor, a seasoned Zentorian legal expert named Thexfor, had built his career on protecting his species' intellectual property. He had successfully prosecuted dozens of patent infringement cases, establishing legal precedents that protected Zentorian innovations across multiple star systems. Yet, as he watched Park Soo-jin return to her seat with that same unsettling calm, something nagged at the back of his mind. Prosecutor Yoon Ji-woo rose from his seat with the practiced grace of someone who had never lost a patent case. His augmented neural implants glowed softly blue as he interfaced with the courtroom's holographic display systems. The air above the chamber's center shimmered and coalesced into a three-dimensional representation of quantum fold technology that left many in the gallery gasping in awe. The hologram showed intricate crystalline structures that pulsed with exotic energy, their surfaces covered in mathematical equations that seemed to flow like living things. These weren't mere technical drawings, but actual quantum simulations of the technology in action, demonstrating how information could be folded through dimensional space to achieve instantaneous communication across vast galactic distances. "Honored beings of the tribunal," Yoon began, his voice carrying the confidence of absolute certainty. "Before you lies the culmination of 3,000 years of Zentorian scientific achievement. The quantum fold communication array represents the pinnacle of dimensional engineering, a technology so advanced that only the most sophisticated civilizations can even comprehend its basic principles." He gestured toward the hologram, which zoomed in to show microscopic details of the quantum matrices. Each component was labeled with Zentorian script that flowed across the display like liquid mercury. The translation systems worked overtime, converting the complex technical terminology into languages that ranged from the harmonic frequencies of the resonance collective to the color-based communication of the chromatic union. Our ancestors first conceived of quantum folding during the Great Expansion, when our fleets needed to coordinate across multiple star systems simultaneously. The mathematical framework alone required the combined efforts of our greatest minds for 5 centuries. The practical engineering took another millennium to perfect. The hologram shifted to show historical footage of early Zentorian experiments. Massive space stations surrounded an artificial black hole, their energy collectors drinking in the warped space-time to power the first primitive quantum fold tests. Explosions marked failed attempts, each one representing decades of lost research and countless lives. The materials required exist in only 7 known locations throughout the galaxy, Yoon continued, highlighting rare mineral deposits on the display. The manufacturing process demands precision at the atomic level. Tolerance is so exact that even microscopic variations result in catastrophic failure. The Vorthak crystal mines attempted to replicate our work for 800 years and succeeded only in creating beautiful but useless sculptures. Several Vorthak representatives in the gallery resonated with harmonic embarrassment at this reminder of their failed attempts. Their crystalline forms dimmed slightly as they recalled the countless resources wasted in trying to unlock the secrets of quantum folding. "Now observe the evidence recovered from the defendant's vessel," Yoon declared, and the hologram transformed to show detailed scans of the Lucky Strike's communication array. The quantum fold components were highlighted in brilliant red, their specifications scrolling alongside the display. The similarities were undeniable. Every curve, every energy flow pattern, every dimensional fold matched the Zentorian designs exactly. The mathematical constants were identical down to 17 decimal places. Even the manufacturing signatures bore the distinctive quantum resonance patterns that only Zentorian foundries could produce. The defendant's vessel was intercepted at the Rigel customs station during a routine inspection for contraband spices, Yoon explained, bringing up security footage of the inspection. The hologram showed customs officers, their forms obscured by environmental suits, carefully examining the Lucky Strike systems with quantum scanners. The footage revealed Park Soo-jin's ship as a typical human vessel, a patchwork of different technologies held together by determination and creative engineering. Solar collectors from decommissioned mining stations powered fusion reactors salvaged from colony ships. The navigation array appeared to be built from 3 different manufacturers, their components jury-rigged together with human ingenuity. But nestled within this collection of improvised systems sat the quantum fold array, its elegant perfection standing out like a jewel among scrap metal. The contrast was so stark that even the customs officers had initially assumed it was some kind of decorative element rather than functional technology. Inspector Kothvel, a respected member of the Galactic Customs Authority, immediately recognized the technology, Yoon continued. A Mantillian inspector materialized in the hologram, his insectoid features clearly visible as he examined the quantum fold array with professional interest. His report states, and I quote, "The quantum fold components show no signs of modification or adaptation. They appear to be genuine Zentorian military-grade communication arrays. Model designation QF7749 to prime. The integration with the vessel's systems is crude but functional, suggesting the defendant had some technical knowledge but lacks understanding of the technology's true capabilities." The gallery erupted in whispers and clicks and harmonic resonances as species discussed the implications among themselves. The Traders Guild representatives looked particularly interested, calculating the potential market disruption if humans had somehow gained access to quantum fold technology through illegal channels. The defendant's species achieved faster-than-light travel merely 107 years ago, Yoon pressed on, the hologram now showing a timeline of human technological development. Their first interstellar colonies were established using generation ships that took decades to reach their destinations. Their current vessels still rely on primitive fusion drives for sublight propulsion and basic Alcubierre drives for faster-than-light travel. The display showed examples of human technology, emphasizing their reputation for creative but crude solutions. Ships held together with metallic patches and prayer, weapon systems that were more enthusiasm than sophistication, and life support systems that seemed to operate on hope as much as engineering. Yet we are expected to believe that this primitive species somehow independently developed technology that has eluded civilizations with millions of years of scientific advancement? The conclusion is obvious: theft, pure and simple. Judge Kang studied the technical specifications with growing certainty. The quantum fold arrays in Park Soo-jin's ship were indeed identical to Zentorian designs, down to molecular-level details that would be impossible to replicate without access to the original manufacturing equipment. The evidence seemed to paint a clear picture of intellectual property theft on a massive scale. The mathematical proofs alone filled thousands of pages of documentation. The manufacturing processes required materials that humans had never encountered, and techniques that their current technology couldn't achieve. The integration patterns, while crude, showed that someone had attempted to install highly advanced systems into a primitive vessel without fully understanding their capabilities. Judge Kang prepared to issue his ruling. The fine would be substantial, possibly bankrupting the defendant and serving as a warning to other humans who might be tempted to acquire advanced technology through illegal means. The confiscation order would ensure that the stolen technology was returned to its rightful owners. "Ms. Park," Judge Kang announced, his tone carrying the weight of inevitability, "the evidence presented appears overwhelming. Do you have any evidence to present in your defense, or shall we proceed directly to sentencing?" The courtroom fell silent. Even the atmospheric processes seemed to quiet their humming. as if the station itself was holding its breath. Representatives from dozens of species leaned forward in their seats, expecting either a confession or a desperate plea for mercy. Park Soo-jin rose slowly from her chair, her movements deliberate and unhurried. Her calm demeanor hadn't changed throughout the prosecutor's presentation, even as the evidence mounted against her. She reached into her worn satchel and withdrew something that glinted in the chamber's artificial lighting. "Yes, Your Honor," she said, her voice carrying across the silent courtroom with surprising confidence. "I do have evidence to present. The crystalline data core caught the chamber's artificial lighting and threw rainbow patterns across the walls as Park Soo-jin held it up for all to see. The device was no larger than her thumb, but its surface pulsed with an inner light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with some cosmic heartbeat. Ancient runes flickered across its faceted surface, script, so old that even the tribunal's advanced translation systems struggled to process it. "Your Honor," Soo-jin said, her voice cutting through the absolute silence that had fallen over the courtroom, "I submit Terran Patent Filing TF-2847QFC, registered with the Galactic Patent Office 4,000 years ago." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Beings throughout the gallery froze in positions of shock, their various forms of communication falling silent. The Resonance Collective stopped their harmonic humming. The Chromatic Union's representatives flickered through confused color patterns. Even the mechanical observers from the machine worlds ceased their constant data processing chatter. Judge Kang felt his augmented neural implants surge with activity as he automatically interfaced with the Galactic Patent Office database. The timestamp that appeared in his consciousness made him blink hard, certain that his enhanced vision was malfunctioning. But the numbers remained constant, glowing with the unmistakable signature of authentic galactic records. 4,000 years ago. The date was impossible. According to every historical record in the galactic archives, humans 4,000 years ago were barely emerging from what they called their Bronze Age. They were primitive beings who had just discovered how to work. Metal, who worshipped the stars without ever dreaming they might one day travel between them. They hadn't even developed basic spaceflight, let alone the sophisticated technology required to interact with the Galactic Patent Office. The courtroom's main display flickered to life without anyone activating it, responding to Judge Kang's neural interface queries. The holographic projection showed the patent filing in all its ancient glory, the document structure, following protocols that had been standard millennia before most current civilizations had achieved space travel. Prosecutor Yoon Ji-woo shot to his feet with such force that his chair toppled backward, clattering against the floor with a sound that echoed through the silent chamber. His augmented features flushed with indignation, and his voice carried the sharp edge of someone whose entire worldview was being challenged. "This must be a forgery," he declared, pointing an accusing finger at the data core. "Your Honor, this is clearly a desperate attempt to deceive the court. Humans 4,000 years ago were barely civilized. They lived in mud huts and worshipped primitive sky gods. They couldn't even achieve basic agriculture consistently, let alone develop quantum-fold technology that surpasses our current understanding." But even as Yoon spoke, the tribunal's quantum verification systems were running their analysis. These systems had been developed by the combined efforts of 17 different species over the course of 2 millennia. They could detect forgeries at the subatomic level, analyzing quantum signatures that were unique to each time period and impossible to replicate. The results appeared in Judge Kang's consciousness like a thunderbolt. Every quantum signature matched perfectly. The temporal markers were authentic. The encryption patterns followed protocols that had been lost to time and could not be recreated. With modern technology, the mathematical proofs embedded within the filing used notation systems that predated current galactic standards by thousands of years. The Galactic Patent Office's quantum encryption wasn't just unbreakable by current standards. It was built on principles that made forgery theoretically impossible. The system drew its security from the fundamental constants of the universe itself, encoding information into the quantum foam that underlies all reality. To forge such a document would require reshaping the basic laws of physics. Judge Kang's voice emerged as barely more than a whisper, as he read the patent holder's name aloud. Dr. Lee Min-soo. Filed from coordinates matching Earth Solar System, Sol Sector, Outer Rim Territory Designation 7749 Alpha. The coordinates were unmistakable. They pointed directly to Earth, the human homeworld, as it had been catalogued in the earliest galactic surveys. But those surveys hadn't been conducted until long after humans should have been capable of space travel, let alone interaction with galactic civilization. Park Soo-jin remained standing, her calm demeanor unchanged despite the chaos erupting around her. She reached into her satchel again and produced another device, this one bearing the distinctive biometric scanners of the Terran Genetic Registry. The device was clearly human in origin, its surfaces bearing the characteristic blend of practical design and artistic flourish that marked human engineering. Furthermore, Your Honor, she continued, her voice carrying easily over the growing tumult in the gallery, I am Dr. Lee Min-soo's direct descendant and heir to all his patents, as recorded in the Terran Genetic Registry. My genetic markers confirm unbroken lineage through 167 generations. She placed her hand on the biometric scanner, and the device immediately began projecting a complex family tree into the air above her head. The holographic display showed generations upon generations of human ancestry, each generation marked with genetic markers, birth records, and inheritance documentation that stretched back through human history like an unbroken chain. The Zentorian delegation erupted in protest, their scales flashing with agitation as they rose from their seats in unison. Vextar's forearms gestured wildly as he hissed objections in his native tongue. The translator systems worked frantically to convert his rapid-fire speech into galactic standard. Impossible, preposterous. The human species lacks the biological longevity for such genetic record-keeping. Their primitive society couldn't maintain documentation across such vast time periods, but the genetic registry's holographic display continued its relentless revelation. Each generation was documented with the obsessive detail that only humans seemed capable of maintaining. Birth certificates, marriage records, death records, all preserved through wars, disasters, and the rise and fall of civilizations. The human capacity for record-keeping, even in their earliest societies, was legendary throughout the galaxy. Other species in the gallery began voicing their own objections and questions. The Vorthak crystal minds resonated with harmonic confusion, their mathematical consciousness struggling to process the implications. The machine observers from the synthetic collective increased their data processing speeds, their mechanical forms humming with computational activity as they attempted to verify the information through their own databases. Representatives from the trading guilds whispered urgently among themselves, calculating the economic implications if the patent claims proved legitimate. If humans held prior patents on quantum-fold technology, the entire foundation of interstellar commerce could be shifted overnight. Judge Kang raised his hand for silence, but the gesture seemed small and ineffective against the growing chaos in the chamber. Species that had maintained diplomatic relations for centuries were now questioning everything they thought they knew about galactic history and human capabilities. The atmospheric processes in the chamber began working overtime as the excitement raised temperature and humidity levels beyond normal parameters. Environmental barriers flickered as different species' emotional responses triggered their various biological functions. The Aquatic Council's representatives began releasing bioluminescent displays of agitation, while the silicon-based collective started generating harmonic resonances that made the station's hull vibrate. Through it all, Park Soo-jin stood quietly at the defendant's table, her expression suggesting that she had expected exactly this reaction. The chaos surrounding her seemed to flow around her like water around a stone, leaving her untouched by the storm of controversy she had unleashed. The implications were staggering. If her claims were true, then human civilization was far older and more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. The technology that powered galactic civilization might not belong to the species that had been profiting from it for millennia. And perhaps most disturbing of all, it meant that the galaxy's understanding of its own history was fundamentally flawed. Judge Kang found himself staring at the patent filing, its ancient authentication codes glowing with undeniable authenticity, and realized that this case had just become far more complex than a simple matter of intellectual property theft. The tribunal's quantum processors worked at maximum capacity as they dove deeper into the galactic historical archives, their computational power drawing energy from the station's primary fusion cores. The main holographic display expanded to fill the entire chamber, creating a three-dimensional timeline that wrapped around the courtroom like a living constellation of data points. What emerged from the depths of galactic history sent shockwaves through every delegation present. The timeline showed Earth 4,000 years ago, a small blue world in an unremarkable star system that most civilizations had dismissed as uninhabitable. Yet there, glowing like a beacon in the historical record, was the unmistakable signature of Dr. Lee Min-soo's first faster-than-light voyage. The records were fragmentary but undeniable. Ancient sensor logs from long-dead monitoring stations showed the distinctive energy signature of a primitive but functional Alcubierre drive emerging from the Sol system. The craft had been small, barely larger than a modern escape pod, but it had achieved what most species considered impossible for such a young civilization. Judge Kang's augmented consciousness processed terabytes of historical data in seconds, each revelation more shocking than the last. Dr. Lee hadn't just achieved faster-than-light travel. He had systematically explored 17 different star systems, making first contact with species that wouldn't officially meet humans for another 4 millennia. The holographic timeline showed his journey like a spiderweb of light connecting distant stars. Each system visit was documented in the Galactic Patent Office's earliest records, filed with the methodical precision that would later become a hallmark of human scientific endeavor. "The records show," Judge Kang announced, his voice carrying the weight of cosmic revelation, that Dr. Lee Min-soo filed 47 separate patents with the newly established Galactic Patent Office. These include quantum fold communication arrays, dimensional energy harvesting systems, gravity manipulation matrices, and, he paused, accessing deeper files. The fundamental mathematical frameworks that underpin modern, faster-than-light travel. The Zentorian delegation sat in stunned silence as the implications crashed over them like a tsunami. Their entire technological civilization, built over millennia of careful development, had been founded on human innovations. The quantum fold arrays that formed the backbone of their interstellar empire weren't Zentorian inventions at all. Prosecutor Yoon's face had gone pale as the timeline revealed the truth. The Zentorians had encountered Dr. Lee during their third expansion phase, when their fleets were still using primitive fusion drives for interstellar travel. Historical records, previously classified as diplomatic curiosities, now took on sinister, new meaning. The Zentorian first contact reports from 3,000 years ago, Judge Kang continued, accessing military archives that hadn't been reviewed in centuries, describe an encounter with a primitive human vessel that possessed inexplicably advanced communication systems. The report recommended careful study of the alien technology for potential military applications. The chamber's environmental systems struggled to maintain atmospheric balance as representatives from dozens of species began rapid consultations with their home governments. Emergency quantum fold transmissions burst outward from the station like fireworks, carrying news that would reshape galactic politics within hours. Park Soo-jin reached into her satchel once more and withdrew a device that made several alien delegates gasp in recognition. It was a personal data journal, its surface worn smooth by countless generations of handling, but its quantum storage matrix still intact and functional. "My ancestors' journals have been preserved in our family for 4,000 years, she said, activating the device with a touch that triggered biometric verification systems. Each generation has been charged with maintaining the record, waiting for the day when humanity would reclaim its place among the stars. The journal's holographic display activated, filling the air above Soo-jin with images that took the breath away from every being present. Dr. Lee Min-soo appeared as a three-dimensional projection, his features clearly recognizable as the ancestor of the woman standing before them. But he stood not on primitive Earth, but in what was clearly the command center of an advanced spacecraft. Personal log, stardate 2847.3. Dr. Lee's recorded voice spoke across 4 millennia, the translation. Systems converting his ancient Korean into galactic standard. I have successfully made contact with the Zentorian exploration fleet. Their technology is impressive, but limited by their aggressive territorial instincts. I believe sharing our quantum fold research could help them expand peacefully across the galaxy. The courtroom watched in absolute silence as the historical record unfolded. Dr. Lee's ship, despite its humble origins, contained technology that surpassed anything the early Zentorians possessed. His crew of 12 humans had achieved breakthroughs that entire alien civilizations struggled to comprehend. The Zentorian commander, Vex Thran I, has requested technical specifications for our communication arrays. Dr. Lee continued in another log entry. I see no harm in sharing this knowledge. Perhaps if civilizations can communicate instantly across vast distances, the galaxy will know fewer wars. The irony was devastating. Dr. Lee had given away humanity's technological advantages freely, believing that advanced communication would foster peace and cooperation among the stars. Instead, species like the Zentorians had used his innovations to build empires and establish technological dominance over younger civilizations. But the E-Journal revealed even more shocking truths. Dr. Lee hadn't worked alone. The holographic records showed glimpses of other humans, scientists and engineers, whose names had been lost to history, but whose innovations had shaped galactic civilization. Fusion reactor designs that powered modern starships, atmospheric processors. That made terraforming possible. Even the basic principles of artificial gravity that every spacefaring species now took for granted. My colleague Dr. Kim Ji-yeon has perfected the gravity manipulation matrices, one log entry revealed. Her work will revolutionize space travel, allowing beings to live comfortably in zero-gravity environments. We must ensure this technology reaches all species equally. Another entry showed Dr. Park Dong-hyun demonstrating energy harvesting techniques that could draw power directly from the quantum vacuum. The universe itself can provide endless energy, his recorded voice explained. No species should struggle for resources when such abundance exists. The tribunal's database searches revealed the scope of early human innovation. Dozens of technologies that formed the foundation of modern galactic civilization had originated with Dr. Lee's expedition team. Yet somehow over the course of 4 millennia, this knowledge had been attributed to other species while humanity slipped into technological obscurity. The evidence suggests, Judge Kang announced, his voice heavy with implications that extended far beyond this single courtroom, that the Zentorians have been infringing on human patents for 3,000 years, but the scope appears much larger than simple communication technology. Vextar rose from his seat, his forearms trembling with rage and humiliation. This is impossible. Our ancestors developed these technologies through millennia of research and innovation. We cannot be expected to believe that primitive humans possessed such advanced knowledge, but the evidence was undeniable. The patent timestamps, the historical records, the genetic documentation, even the quantum authentication signatures, all pointed to the same impossible truth. Humanity had been among the galaxy's most advanced civilizations 4,000 years ago, only to withdraw from galactic affairs for reasons that remained mysterious. Park Soo-jin nodded calmly as the chaos swirled around her. My ancestors' journals detail his encounters with 17 different alien species. He was generous in sharing his knowledge, believing it would foster galactic peace and cooperation among all sentient beings. She gestured to the holographic timeline, which now showed the full scope of Dr. Lee's diplomatic mission. He gave away the secrets of faster-than-light travel to the Vorthak crystal mines. He shared dimensional energy harvesting with the Silicon Collective. He provided atmospheric processing techniques to the Aquatic Council, all freely given with only one request. The courtroom held its breath as she accessed the final journal entries. Dr. Lee appeared one last time, older now, his face marked by years of interstellar travel and diplomatic missions. I have shared our knowledge with 47 different species, his recorded voice spoke across the centuries. My only hope is that when humanity is ready to join the galactic community as equals, These gifts will be remembered with friendship rather than suspicion. The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats, suddenly aware of how many of their native technologies might have similar origins. The galaxy's technological foundation, built over millennia and attributed to dozens of different species, might actually be the legacy of a single human expedition that had chosen generosity over dominance. Judge Kang stared at the evidence before him, realizing that this case had implications that extended far beyond patent law into the very heart of galactic civilization itself. Judge Kang stood slowly from his ceremonial chair, the weight of galactic history pressing down on his shoulders like the gravity of a collapsed star. The chamber's atmospheric processes hummed quietly, as beings from across the galaxy held their breath, waiting for words that would reshape their understanding of civilization itself. The holographic evidence still floated around the courtroom, like ghostly witnesses to ancient truths. Dr. Lee Min-soo's recorded face gazed down at the assembly, his 4,000-year-old words still echoing in the translation matrices. The quantum authentication codes pulsed with undeniable legitimacy, their light reflecting off the scales, crystals, and mechanical surfaces of dozens of different species. After careful review of the evidence presented, Judge Kang began, his voice carrying the authority of 3 decades serving galactic justice. This court finds that the patent claims submitted by Park Soo-jin are authentic and legally binding under galactic law. The quantum verification systems have confirmed the age and legitimacy of all documentation beyond any reasonable doubt. The Zentorian delegation sat frozen in their seats, their iridescent scales dulled by shock and disbelief. Vexitar's 4 arms hung limply at his sides as the implications crashed over him like a meteor impact. 3 millennia of Zentorian technological supremacy had just been revealed as built upon borrowed human innovations. Ms. Park Soo-jin, Judge Kang continued, turning toward the defendant's table with newfound respect evident in his posture, you are hereby cleared of all charges of patent infringement. Furthermore, this court officially recognizes your legitimate patent claims as the heir to Dr. Lee Min-soo's technological legacy. The chamber erupted in a symphony of alien communication. The resonance collective's harmonic frequencies rose in pitch, while the chromatic union flickered through rapid color changes that painted the walls in shifting rainbows. Mechanical observers from the synthetic worlds increased their processing speeds, their optical sensors glowing brighter as they recorded every detail of this historic moment. But Judge Kang wasn't finished. He turned toward the Zentorian delegation, his expression grave with the weight of cosmic justice. The Zentorian Confederacy, having utilized patented human technology without proper licensing for approximately 3,000 years, owes the Lee estate compensation for unauthorized use of quantum fold communication arrays, plus accumulated damages and interest. The tribunal's computational systems began calculating the astronomical sum in real time, their quantum processors working at maximum capacity to process 3 millennia of technological usage across an entire galactic empire. The numbers that appeared on the holographic displays made several delegates gasp in their various native languages. The sum was beyond comprehension. Every quantum fold communication array in Zentorian space, every instant message sent across their empire, every trade negotiation conducted through their technology had generated value that legally belonged to the Lee estate. Compound interest. Over 3,000 years had created a debt that exceeded the gross domestic product of entire star systems. Prosecutor Yoon's face had gone ashen as he stared at the calculations. The Zentorian Confederacy, despite their vast resources and technological dominance, would face complete economic collapse if forced to pay such compensation. Their entire civilization had been built on foundations that weren't legally theirs. The economic implications rippled outward like shockwaves from a stellar explosion. The trading guild's representatives calculated market disruptions that could destabilize interstellar commerce for centuries. The Vorthak crystal mines resonated with mathematical anxiety as they processed the potential cascade effects across galactic civilization. Park Soo-jin rose from her chair, her simple jumpsuit and calloused hands presenting a stark contrast to the cosmic drama unfolding around her. She had remained calm throughout the entire proceedings, as if she had expected this moment her entire life. Her family had preserved Dr. Lee's legacy for 167 generations, waiting for the day when humanity would reclaim its place among the stars. "Your Honor," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos with surprising clarity, "before any compensation is collected, I wish to make a statement on behalf of the Lee estate." The chamber fell silent again, every being present recognizing that her next words would determine the fate of galactic civilization. Judge Kang nodded for her to proceed, his augmented senses recording every syllable for the historical archives. Sujin looked around the courtroom, her gaze touching on each alien delegation in turn. When she spoke, her words carried the same generous spirit that had driven her ancestor, to share humanity's knowledge with the stars. "In the spirit of my ancestor's original intentions, and in honor of his dream of galactic peace and cooperation, I hereby grant free licensing of all Lee estate patents to all species, provided they are used exclusively for peaceful purposes and the promotion of understanding between civilizations." The words hit the assembly like a quantum storm. Beings who had been calculating economic disasters and political upheavals suddenly found themselves facing an act of generosity that defied their understanding of interstellar relations. The human woman who could have bankrupted entire empires with a legal claim was instead choosing to give away technology worth more than most star systems. The Zentorian delegation stared in disbelief. Vextar's scales began to shimmer with patterns that his species reserved for moments of profound gratitude and humility. The debt that would have destroyed his civilization had just been forgiven by the very being they had accused of theft. But Sojin wasn't finished. She activated her ancestor's journal one final time, Dr. Lee's holographic form appearing beside her, like a ghost from humanity's hidden past. "My ancestor wrote in his final log entry," she continued, "that he hoped when humanity joined the galactic community, his gifts would be remembered with friendship rather than suspicion. Today, 4,000 years later, I choose to honor that hope." The courtroom erupted in a cacophony of alien languages as species tried to process the magnitude of what had just occurred. The machine world's representatives calculated the immediate end to pending patent disputes across 17 star systems. The Aquatic Council's bioluminescent displays painted the chamber in patterns of gratitude and amazement. Judge Kang raised his ceremonial gavel, its quantum-enhanced surface reflecting the chamber's chaotic light show. "By the authority of this tribunal, the licensing terms offered by Park Sujin are hereby accepted and recorded in galactic law. All species present are bound by the peaceful use requirements stipulated by the Lee estate." The gavel's impact resonated through the station's hull, transmitted by quantum communication arrays that had themselves been built using Dr. Lee's innovations. The sound carried across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds, announcing to countless civilizations that the foundations of their technology came not from conquest or theft, but from humanity's ancient gift to the stars. As the delegates began filing out of the chamber, their conversations filled with wonder and newfound respect. Park Sujin gathered her simple belongings. She had accomplished what her family had prepared for across countless generations. Dr. Lee's legacy was restored, and humanity had reclaimed its place as a founding contributor to galactic civilization. Judge Kang approached her as the chamber emptied, his expression mixing professional respect with personal admiration. "Ms. Park, what you've done today will reshape interstellar relations for millennia to come. Your ancestor would be proud." Sujin smiled, shouldering her worn satchel that had contained evidence capable of toppling empires. He always believed that knowledge shared freely makes the galaxy a better place for everyone. Today just proved he was right. As she walked toward the chamber's exit, her footsteps echoing in the vast space, Judge Kang realized that perhaps it was time the galaxy reconsidered its assumptions about humanity. The species they had dismissed as primitive scavengers were actually the ancient architects of galactic civilization, and their greatest strength wasn't their technology, but their willingness to share it with others. Outside the chamber's windows, ships from hundreds of worlds began departing the station, carrying news that would transform the galaxy's understanding of its own history. And somewhere in the endless expanse of space, Dr. Lee Min-soo's 4,000-year-old dream of galactic cooperation finally began to unfold. The end.